What's on, guys? Just here back at my channel. Tonight I'll be doing a review for Aew Collision, but this is gonna be a late video, so let's get to it then. Alright, we have a little segment with Tony Storm. Only the AEW Women's World Champion could have opened tonight's show the way that she did, from the box seats inside the Masonic Temple Theater, remembering her first time as AEW Women's World Champion. That is, Storm has been having the time of her life. Excuse me, in the AEW Women's Title Eliminators, as she's used to pushing her body past her limits, and she's ready for even more slop tarts. So she'll see even more women in yet another eliminator match next week. All right. So, anyways, I have a little backstage promo thing with the Paragon. Backstage, Paragon acknowledged that they were disappointed with the result of their 2 out of 3 falls match against FTR last week, but they also know they're one of the best tag teams to ever do it, and they're ready to do the work to climb back to the top. Enter grizzled young veterans who said it's true that Paragon used to be the best, but they've gotten soft, and anytime they want to be reminded of what's like to really fight for their place, GYV are more than happy to dance. Alright, finally, first match, Ricochet versus Angelico. Alright, there was a familiar face for wrestling fans in the crowd as Ricochet made his entrance. The one only Zach Gowen, Angelico, that started this one off hot, keeping Ricochet grounded and even getting a little rub in on his bald head for Gula, and a less loving boo. And Angelico then slapped Ricochet's dome a few times while he was stretching him out in a submission, but Ricochet turned the tables and scored the victory with the spirit gun. Sorry, guys. With another win in the ledger, Ricochet grabbed the microphone and ran down the Detroit crowd, noting how rooting for the Lions was the truest sign of the lack of intelligence of the locals. Ricochet then listed all the AEW legends he's been since he's joined the company, and speaking of legends, there's one in the house, Zach Gowen. Ricochet was a huge fan of Gowen when he was growing up. In fact, he loved watching Gowen getting beaten up, but the difference is that back then Ricochet said to Gowen's children their dad was on this side of the barricade. Now he's on that side. That didn't stop Ricochet from putting hands on Gowen though. And then when security tried to intervene, Ricochet Ricochet beat them down, mocked them, and cut with the hair of one. Gowen had seen enough. He jumped the barricade, entered the ring, and took the scissors, but when he turned his attention away from Ricochet for just a moment, Ricochet took out Gowen's leg, then hit a spirit gun. That would have been too much on its own, but things really got out of hand when Ricochet took Gowen's prosthetic leg and left with it in hand. That's fucked up. So anyways, Ricochet. So that's fucked up. Alright, so anyways, All-Star 8-man tag, the Outrunners and AR Fox and Bandito versus Don Callis family. Alright, good news. We all knew this was going to be a blast from the opening. The bad news, Don Callis has a headset on, as always. Anyway, ROH World Champion Bandito started things off against Kyle Fletcher, who was flanked by family members Trent Beretta, Rocky Romero, and Lance Archer. The two went back and forth for a couple of minutes, and then it was time for chaos. A process of bodies hit the ring, leading the Outrunners getting the best of Roppongi or something. Bias the edge was short-lived as Archer hit Turbo and Truth with a double chokeslam and cleared the ring. Archer controlled the action from there, then gave way to Trent, who continued the abuse on Truth. Truth Magnum, including all 4 members of the Downcast family, crushing Truth in the corner. But if you never quit, you can't stop. And Truth Magnum has no quit in him. He reversed a suplex into a cradle of Fletcher and made his way to the corner for the tag. With his teammates all fresh and ready to go, Turbo Fox and Bandito get the crowd to their feet with a series of absolutely absurd combination offense, largely featuring Bandito and Fox using their teammates to launch themselves to the outside and take out the whole family. Back in the ring, Trent was the legal man for the Doncast family as Fox tagged in On the other side, he took out Beretta with a modified Fisherman's Buster, planted Archer with a hanging DT, drove Rocky in the corner, and kept an eye on Fletcher long enough to hit a back elbow with the Protostar tried to come to Romero's rescue. Fox lost sight of Trent, though, wheeled the high flying long enough for Fletcher to take him out for a moment. Anyway, Fox rebounded with a double cutter on Robertine Vice, but Archer neutralized Fox and Beretta, and Romero hit their new combination maneuver, the Jackal Driver for the win. Alright, John Moxley knows what's coming. It's up. Yeah, they talk about, the Veal thing with the Samoa Joe and yeah. Oh, yeah, this was live. So, anyways, John Moxley said John Moxley knows Samoa Joe is going to kick his ass. The question isn't whether he will; it's how long he's going to do it. Is one of the few guys that Mox has genuine respect for. He's the embodiment of a champion, but he's not the AEW World Champion. Moxley is, and he knows that no matter what happens in that steel cage in Chicago, Moxley knows he has been through worse. He has been through the kind of hell and weathered the kind of storms and faced the kind of demons that would keep these kids up at night. He doesn't need to be feared or respected by Joe or anyone else. He just needs Joe to show up. Mox doesn't get along with the rest of the world because he's not like the rest of the world. And believe it or not, there's nowhere else he would rather be next week than a cage with the baddest man on the planet. Samoa Joe with the AEW World Tag Team, AEW World Title hanging in the balance. When it's all said and done, the only thing that matters is who is the last man standing. All right, all right. Goen looks for vengeance stuff. Vengeance might be a dish best served cold, but Zach Goen isn't waiting. Tony Schiavone announced that Goen made it clear that he wants Ricochet in the ring, and Tony Khan has made it official that the two will fight next week at Beach Break Dynamite in Chicago. Alright, next match is Anthony Bowens versus Lee Johnson. Lee Johnson and Blake Christian stepped to Bowens last week, and the pride of professional wrestling wasn't about to let the disrespect slide. Johnson gave a game effort, but Molly Wop was all she wrote, giving Bowens the 1-2-3 that had the 5-foot tall player in a great mood, and that meant it was scissor time, not like Ricochet's the vicious scissor times. That's different. Bowens got the Detroit crowd hype, then threw him up for a mid-ring scissor with daddy ass. So winner is Anthony Bowens. Alright, I have a little segment against the agony and the learning tree. Alright, sometimes professional wrestling is an absolute art form, and sometimes it is an absolute brawl. This one was the latter. All four of the members of these two tag teams simply wanted to beat the living hell out of each other and considered that mission accomplished. A crucifix bomb through two tables, a massive spear through two others, left all four men wiped out with help needed from backstage. Alright, next match, Will Nightingale versus Chris Stanlander. Alright, this was a good match right here. Alright, hello in the ring, there be anyone. The history between these two is complicated to say the least. So maybe communicating via wrestling match was what they both needed. Both women showed off their strength and striking in the opening moments until Statlander mocked Willow with one of her poses and on a pin, whatever. Nightingale responded by laying in massive chops and elbows, then slamming Statlander's head from post to post. Willow kept the pressure on, culminating in a cannonball and to Statlander on the outside. But when Nightingale went for a suplex, Stat was able to reverse, taking all the momentum away from Nightingale, with both having taken their fair share of punishment. This one went back to middle for more fisticuffs. Stat landed on a devastating kick to the skull, but Nightingale countered with a rib-rocking spinebuster and exchange of near falls left Statlander on top, drilling Willow with a thrust kick, followed by an axe kick to the back of the head. Speaking of on top, Stat and Nightingale went up to the top row, and Statlander landed a massive superplex that had the fans on their feet. It seemed we were on track for an all-time classic until Death Riders arrived. Yuta Wheeler provided distraction, and Marina Shafir choked out Nightingale with a chain as revenge for Willow getting involved in the Death Riders' business. Both Statlander and the official were unaware, and Stat took home the win over and captivated Nightingale. So winner is Chris Statlander. Man, it was so good until they showed up. Alright, Josh Alexander and Kenoshi Takeshi versus Evil Uno and Alex Reynolds. The Doncast family didn't even wait for the bell to ring to go to town on the Dark Order. Takeshi beat up Uno on the outside while Alexander got his licks and on Reynolds in the ring. It was clinical, it was brutal, and it was clearly matches being sent to Heyman, Adam Page, and Will Ospreay ahead of next week when the two Owen Hart Cup finals will team up to take on Alexander and Takeshita. Alright, so winners are Josh Alexander, Kenoshi Takeshita. Alright, Speedball Mike Bailey versus Driscoll, round 2. This one spilled to the outside early as Driscoll and Speedball showcased their athleticism, but it was a poke to the eye by Driscoll that defined this one early, allowing the LFI member to dominate Bailey right up until Speedball scored a few kicks to the thigh, driving Driscoll back to the corner where the two men exchanged chops. Bailey went for his 450 knee drop off the top, but Driscoll dodged, setting up a chain of incredibly athletic maneuvers, including a crucifix bomb onto Bailey that Speedball and responded to with a fortuitous Canadian Destroyer. A spinning heel kick from Bailey square to the head got Speedball the victory. Rouge's music hit, and he came halfway down the ramp, but no further as the crowd chanted his name. Alright, so winner is Speedball Mike Bailey. Alright, next match is main event, Daniel Garcia versus Dax Harwood. Alright, so Daniel Garcia versus Dax Harwood main event. Mystery saw Dax was the member of NTR who stepped in the ring to answer Garcia's questions, and his answers were mostly violent, especially in the beginning, as Harwood slapped Garcia all around the ring when Dax tried to power drive Garcia on the outside through the former TNT champion, reversed it and catapulted Harwood into the ring post. Garcia maintained the advantage of the outside, repeatedly crushing Harwood seated on a steel chair against the barricade right up until Cash Wheeler stepped in between the two and gave Harwood the opportunity to level Garcia. Wheeler kept getting involved, as did Stokely, until Daddy Magic came out to play some semblance of the equalizer. Yet the damage had been done despite being bloodied. Harwood pounded Garcia back in the ring. He also made a mistake though in continuing to taunt mock Garcia. Eventually, the young star had enough, firing up with repeated palm strikes to Harwood's chest, a massive lariat, and 10 punches to Harwood's head in the corner. In a moment of desperation and treachery, both Harwood ripped the turnbuckle off. Cover off of one of the top ropes in the corner, which loomed large when he fended off a submission attempt by Garcia and sent his former prodigy head first into exposed metal, leading to a pop-up powerbomb with the assist from the rope by Harwood. Rage is an incredible thing, though, as Garcia dug down deep to seize Harwood and superplex him 3 times in a row. The two men took the fight to the crowd right by the commentator's table, where Harwood saw fit to slap Nigel McGuinness's headset off his head. That was too much for Nigel, who followed Harwood to the ring and laid in a headbutt and European uppercut. Cash Wheeler tried to counter McGuinness, but Danny Magic was right there to help chase off FTR. Alright, so no contest, nobody win or nothing. So yeah, anyways, it was a good show way earlier tonight and stuff. So yeah, not too bad. Some of the matches were good and stuff. The women's match was very good until the Death Riders and messed up the whole thing and shit. So yeah, anyways, good show tonight. I enjoyed it, and yeah. So anyways, that was this first video. I hope you like it, not whatever. So like, subscribe, hit that button, leave a comment. If you guys want to leave a comment, stuff, and I care what you guys do. And that was it. I see you guys tomorrow night for Friday Night SmackDown. All right, laters.